1-MNA. It's an anti-inflammatory and cardiac repair in the body. And what it does is it reduces the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It also helps if your body's in this kind of state of fight or flight, or if you have long COVID, for example. The interesting thing about this ACE-031 is it increases lean muscle mass, reduces body fat mass, it improves bone mineral density. It helps, with the walk distancing in patients who do have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The nice thing about this one is for sleep. I've been using this one. It's made a big difference. Not only has my deep sleep improved by maybe 10%, my REM has improved by about 10%. What it does is this mimics the endogenous ghrelin pathway. All right, welcome everybody. It's Reagan here, and the Health Accelerator community, come on in. Good to see everybody. Really happy to be here today. It's been a phenomenal day around here, and as it usually is, but we've got some exciting things I'll be rolling out. One of my primary roles here at EastWest is to make sure that each of you have access to some of the world's best medicine and best peptides and newest research, newest breakthroughs. So today is exciting because we're going to unveil some peptides that are phenomenal, peptides that I've used personally, but it's been a few years to get the compounding pharmacies to make the agents in bulk so that we can actually start administering these. And so today I'm pleased to announce that we've got a few new peptides we'll be jumping into. So, but before we do, I want to see if anybody's got questions on anything, if there's any new updates. Maybe someone's had a big win in their health. If so, plug it in the chat box. I'd love to hear your insights on that. But let's and by the way, if you plug them in as we go, I'll check them out. But last week, I had the opportunity to speak at the Transformational Leadership Council, Jack Canfield's event. And if you don't know who Jack Canfield is, he wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. I had a chance to do his lab review, and he's a client of ours, and the group invited me to come speak. And so I was there in Vail, Colorado. And it was just a phenomenal experience because while I was there, I had a chance to meet some of the authors, books I'd read years ago. After I did my presentation, there was a few medical clairvoyants in the audience, and in Hawaii, where I went to school, it was crazy how many people had these almost like psychic gifts, and this medical intuitive, when I walked off the stage, she said, I looked over at my husband, who's, it sounds like he's also a medical intuitive. And I said, did you see that? And then she's like smiling at me. I'm like, see what? And she's like, well, you had this like radiate light coming out of your, she pointed to my core. And so yeah, it was kind of fun to see, but it was a great time. Had some friends who were in the group, like Garrett Gunderson, Mike Koenigs, Vivian, who invited me. And so, yeah, just a phenomenal experience. And so Irene, I see, so if your ANA is high, that's that can be a marker for some autoimmunity or even one of the things you may want to look at for RA. So you need to get in here and let's take a look at that. All right, well, and I hope you guys have been having a phenomenal summer. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go through some of these, these newer peptides, newer molecules. One of them is a phenomenal molecule. It's called 1-MNA, and it's an anti-inflammatory and cardiac repair in the body. And what it does is it reduces the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It also helps if your body's in this kind of state of fight or flight, or if you have, long COVID, for example. The 1-MNA is it's a phenomenal molecule for that. It helps with immune cell regulation. It also seems to modulate the activity of the cells by balancing the immune response and reduce excessive inflammation. So in your body, you have this adaptive and innate immune response. And so one of the things that happens is if you have an autoimmune condition, and so Irene, just like what you plugged in the chat box, this would be a really good molecule for you to consider. But what happens with that innate and adaptive immune response is the body starts to get confused, and it looks at like chemicals or different food proteins that we eat, like gluten or casein and dairy, and sometimes it sees that as a threat, and though it can, those can be triggers where it's not necessarily dangerous. And so what 1-MNA is it's methyl nicotinamide, and it's certainly something that it's much more natural. It's water soluble, and one of the things that you'll find is in some of the studies. They used this, and this was in 2022. There was a study where they looked at the use of 1-MNA in patients or population to improve exercise tolerance and fatigue in people who have had COVID-19. And what they found is that in this study, so many people had kind of these long COVID symptoms in 22. And by introducing this 1-methyl nicotinamide, they found that it's produced in the liver naturally. And when this particular acid's metabolized, it demonstrates this massive anti-inflammatory and anti-thrombotic property. And so they started looking at it, and they said, well, what would happen if we gave it to this population? And this was a study that was done of over 50 patients, and they had recovered from symptomatic COVID-19, and they were randomized into two groups. Of course, one, they got the placebo, they didn't get the real supplementation, and the other one did. And they did a 6-minute walk test, and then they carried out a fatigue assessment. And what they noticed is that, and then it was repeated 1 month later, and they noticed that there's a significant improvement in the mean distance covered by the group that had the 1-MNA. And so once again, they did the walking test with both groups, 6-minute walking test, and they measured the fatigue rates of these groups. And then one group got the placebo for a month, the other group got the 1-MNA for a month, and then they tested again, and the group that had the 1-MNA had a substantial improvement in their fatigue levels compared to the placebo group. So it makes a lot of sense, because not only is it regulating the immune cell response, but the endothelial function. And this is where the researchers realized that part of what happens with the spike proteins is they damage the endothelial cells, which line the blood vessels, and that plays a massive role in vascular health. They also found that it regulated blood pressure. So for those of you, if you have high blood pressure, this is a great peptide to help stabilize it, bring it down. It helps with arterial sclerosis prevention. By reducing inflammation and improving the endothelial function, you can only imagine you get better vascularity. And so this is where hopefully you're getting your cold plunges. Cool thing about the event is there's the Gore Creek was running, kind of by the hotel where the event was. And, a bunch of people are cold plunging in there. So yeah, if you add 1-MNA with your cold plunge, it's just it's going to be game changer. And then put in some sarcotropin, and then some of these other molecules and peptides that we'll be talking about. So 1-MNA. So think of this: anti-inflammatory, regulates the immune response, great for cardiac repair, lung repair, and amazing, according to the study, could be very helpful for people who have long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome. And yes, we can get this now, which is really exciting. The other thing with 1-MNA is it does work for the brain. It's an energy catalyst. Some of the research, they also found that on cognitive function, it can help protect against age-related cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases. They found that it reduces oxidative stress in the brain. So if you have like high levels of homocysteine, if you have a lot of stress, if you've had any kind of traumatic brain injuries, this can be a key factor in helping remodulate the damage because it does, once again, it's an anti-inflammatory agent. And so one of the big problems with like depression, anxiety, ADHD, ADD, any kind of mental issues is a lot of times it can be from an inflammatory response in the brain. And then the glial cells, which protect your neurons, when they start getting scrambled because of the inflammation, you don't get good cell-to-cell communication. It's almost like, right now there's a lot of smoke in the sky from fires all over, Canada, Oregon, who knows where else they are. I guess you guys may if you can search, but it's like climbing to the top of the mountain. And I remember one summer, we climbed to the top of Timp and I could barely see Utah Lake because the smoke was so thick. I know it's probably not the best air quality to be hiking in, but I wanted to get that hike in, and I had it planned with friends, and so we just did it and brought the kids with us too. But that's what happens in our brain when there's too much inflammation or in our body is the cells can't communicate because there's a smoke screen there. And so this is where detoxification is so critical. And in every single phase of your peptide programs, we're continually working on those detox pathways, and that's where CellCore comes in and some of the cell medicine that we provide you. The other thing with 1-MNA is it helps regulate glucose metabolism, so it improves insulin sensitivity, glucose uptake. It helps with lipid metabolism, and we talked about blood pressure, but it also they've seen it can lower cholesterol levels and fat distribution and triglycerides. So here's a great molecule on so many levels. We talked about the fact that it helps with the immune modulation, with inflammation, helps with cardiac repair by repairing the endothelial cells in the blood vessels. And then it can also be very important if someone has long COVID or any kind of viral infections, chronic fatigue syndrome. The studies are very compelling there, and then helps with the brain, and it's a energy booster. So, may lower blood pressure, may help with glucose metabolism, lipid metabolism. So any kind of metabolic disease. So now we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, someone's got high anion gap, which 90% of the labs are run. You guys have that. And 1-MNA may be just the thing needed to bring those levels down. What I've noticed on the 1-MNA is just feeling like from a cardiorespiratory perspective, in Colorado, the elevation, granted, I live at about, 6,000 feet, but I went up to about 8,500, 9,000, where as high as 12. And, I still able to run and felt pretty darn good. And so I think, I have to say it might be somewhat from the 1-MNA that I've been utilizing. All right, so pretty exciting. So the next one we're going to talk about is ACE-31. Now, this one's interesting because if you think of myostatin, so what ACE-31 is a myostatin inhibitor, and myostatin is it's a gene. It's a protein that actually can it can keep our bodies. It inhibits muscle growth, and so the interesting thing is you'd say, okay, well, tell me what that means. Well, it means that if you have myostatin, which is a myokine, it's produced by your myocytes, and it works on the muscles to inhibit muscle growth. So it's one of the fastest ways that you can build muscle. because when it's a myostatin inhibitor, then you get follistatin that gets increased, and then you start having more muscle mass. And so this one is, the myostatin gene, which is what ACE31 works on, or ACE031. And that's, popularly called the Hercules gene. But they're looking at it for a lot of different issues. And so particularly with the Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And what they're finding is it does have there's some very positive research on this. I even saw this in a study where they took menopausal women, and these menopausal women were undergoing some atrophy. They're losing muscle mass and they're getting sarcopenic, where they're putting on fat. And they found by using ACE31 that they were able to have an increase in lean muscle mass. They had a decrease in adipose. One thing that was noted is, sometimes your appetite can be stimulated by this. So that's where you want to have your diet really dialed in. And this is something that, this is not what you just go and get on your own. You definitely want to get, some medical insights based on what your labs show and if this is right for you or not. But the interesting thing about this ACE031 is it increases lean muscle mass, reduces body fat mass, it improves bone mineral density. It helps, with the walk distancing in patients who do have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And it is something that's used by a lot of bodybuilders because they're trying to grow their muscle. But our goal is not to get you to the bodybuilders, side of things, unless that's your goal, then we'll help you with that. But our goal is to make sure that you have a muscled up future. So using something like ACE031, if appropriate, might be a really good part of your overall longevity pursuits. It'll protect your joints, protect your whole body, and might just give you kind of a leg up. And so the other thing that it's been looking for is improving the nutrients and the glucose disposal system that's found in the muscle. So our bodies, remember, our bodies are, there's two parts. And so sometimes when you're modulating the genes, like something like the ACE031, it'd be like a once a week or once every other week injection. And it's something that you would want to use maybe a couple times a year, unless you've got some crazy competition, but then there's more risks inherent there. So ACE31, so a pretty exciting one. Next one we're going to talk about is hexarelin. And hexarelin is another growth hormone releasing peptide. And according to Dr. Seeds, who's definitely at the forefront of the peptide movement. He claims there's about 100 plus different growth hormone peptides that activate your body's own release of growth hormone. And hexarelin is one of those that does seem to have some really good benefits. In some of the studies, they found that hexarelin is it's a type of growth hormone. It's a secretagogue, is what it's called, or a secretagogue. And it has functions that's similar to like growth hormone releasing peptide 6, which is one of the pathways that you work on with sarcotropin. But they also found that it stimulates the pituitary gland, so you get greater release and production of growth hormone. And so studies have shown that in this, your body can recover quicker. You have better muscle mass. You have a reduction in body fat. And so it led to increased lipolysis, or using your fat as an energy source. It facilitated tissue repair from injuries. And it also helps strengthen connective tissue. So some very interesting things. But this one, what the research shows is you don't want to use it. You use it 4 weeks, maybe 8 weeks in a row, and then you want to, cycle off of it. And and we've talked about this with other growth hormone releasing peptides. Ideally, you do it 5 days on, 2 days off, and you do that for a certain period of time, and then you cycle off of it entirely. But hexarelin, one of the things that has been shown to have cardioprotective effects, and it improves cardiac function. It can prevent arrhythmias, which is when your heart can start missing beats. It also reduces cardiac remodeling post myocardial infarction. So if you've had some kind of cardiovascular event, hexarelin can be really important with this for that. It helps with scar tissue. If you have had some type of damage to the heart, provides pressure relief in the left ventricle. It repairs muscle fibers and tissues. The research also shows it helps with the healing of joints, not necessarily in pain relief, but the tissue that protects the joints. And then it also has a neural system strengthening effect. So all the neurons in your body, the nervous system is benefited by hexarelin. So pretty exciting newer growth hormone releasing peptide that we now have access to. All right, the next one is another exciting one, and this is called massimorelin. And massimorelin is right now it's FDA approved to diagnose adult growth hormone deficiency. So the AGHD, and the nice thing about this one is for sleep. I've been using this one, and it's been made a big difference. Not only has my deep sleep improved by maybe 10%, my REM has improved by about 10%. But what it does is this mimics the endogenous ghrelin pathway. So, and yes, I've been waking up a little hungrier, but luckily I've got my diet on lock. And even today, my wife was like, she sent me a text. She's like, "Man, you're looking good. You look like," she can see some body composition change, just like, just getting a little more trimmed up, which I appreciate. And I think, it might be some of due to some of the massimorelin. And I apologize if maybe it's macimorelin. But what it does is it does help work on the ghrelin pathway, which also mimics the growth hormone releasing effects of ghrelin, which is released from the pituitary. So remember, there's two sides to the growth hormone in the pituitary. There's a ghrelin side and the growth hormone side, and that's one reason why we use like ipamorelin with CJC or ipamorelin with tesamorelin. Because it does help. Yeah, it's a somatostatin inhibitor. You can also use massimorelin, but this was approved in 2017 under the brand name Macrelin for the diagnosis of adult growth hormone deficiency. And the nice thing about this one is you'll see that there's good energy levels. It helps stabilize insulin and benefits your muscle mass. It also benefits any type of issues that growth hormone. So it's good for the joints. It's great. They're using it medically if you have pituitary failures, and it can categorize, just how off things are. This can be used in testing children and adults alike. But what we're seeing is this can be one of the ways that you can actually increase your IGF-1. And so that's a marker that you want to look at, is where are your IGF-1 levels, and massimorelin can help activate that. In some of the studies, what they found is they found that there's no like real gold standard for really testing growth hormone status. I mean, you can measure like basic growth hormone, you can measure IGF-1, but you can also see if someone's thriving or not. And what they found is by using massimorelin, you can actually see this increase in by increasing the ghrelin, you can look at some of the tolerance testing and find out if someone does in fact have a deficiency. So massimorelin, great peptide. This one's oral, so that also makes it kind of nice. But once again, one more great little therapy that's available. So what I'm going to do is kind of pause here. We've got a few more that we'll be talking about next week, and I want to answer some of the questions. Yeah, and so Amanda's asking, many of the peptides have similar benefits. How factors other than one's blood work determines best fit? So and that's a great question, Amanda. And this has probably been, some of the work I've done over the last 10 years is trying to figure out what is not just from what the labs show, but also what your goals are. So we would use hexarelin if somebody really wants to just kind of push that muscle building pathway. If they're going, we'd have them, concentrate in on doing, like fewer reps or super slow or maximum lifting, because hexarelin does seem to have a little more muscle building effects. But when it comes to the growth hormone releasing peptides, massimorelin would be somebody who just wants to recover better and increase some of their own natural growth hormone and maybe increase the appetite just a little bit so they start eating more of the healthy foods. So there is a subjective side to it, but the real thing that you want to look at are the pathways in the body, and that's where the peptides start to differentiate, because a lot of people would say like, well, BPC and thymosin beta 4, they're basically the same. They're angiogenic. They help with tissue repair. They help with vascularity in the body. They're great for the nerves, great for the brain, but they both have different genes that they're turning on. And so while there's not a lot of differentiation like in the growth hormone releasing peptides, one of the things that we do with the growth hormone releasing peptides is we make sure that we're cycling them so that we're working on different pathways at different times of your program. And then, for example, if somebody has more digestive issues, for example, then we're going to go to a different category of peptides. If somebody has more autoimmunity, then that's where we go to a different category of peptides. But at the same time, we'd want to remove those interferences, build up the deficiencies, and then we'd start working on like mitochondria, optimizing hormones, optimizing longevity, and then there's a whole bunch of pathways that we can work on. So it's a combination. Hopefully this answers your question. It's a combination of taking in your labs and the objective data with your subjective goals and what you want to accomplish, and then factoring in your health history. And that's where we use some of these peptides. So next week in the HAC, we'll be talking about the PE2228. This is a very fun peptide. Some of you have been on this, and I've had several of you tell me, man, it really was great for mood enhancement. Oh, you're welcome, Amanda. Hopefully that's helpful. And if you want more nuances, we can dive in deeper. Honestly, it's a really long conversation, but a great question. The other one is the adipotide, and this literally programs cell death in your fat cells. So this one, it's just fascinating. We'll be talking about lorazepam and then onbaracetam. So really appreciate you guys being part of the community. If there's anything you guys need, let us know. Really appreciate you being on the Health Accelerator group. And so the challenge that you've got this week is think of that one MNA and do yourself a favor and give yourself kind of a gauge as far as, have a physical fitness gauge. You remember how they did the 6-minute walk for fatigue? Well, if 6 minutes of walking is challenging for you, time yourself and see how fast you can walk now, and then time yourself in a week from now, get some of these therapies in or start working on your cardiovascular fitness. But just doing one thing will be great. Eileen, when will you get your St. George office open? I think as soon as we solve all of the problems in Salt Lake, because the pharmacy is getting overwhelmed and making sure we get peptides really on time. Everything else is going great, but that's the big challenge that we're making sure that we've got solved before we open St. George. So hopefully soon. We're there according to the pharmacy. We're caught up. So but yeah, I'll know in a couple of months. So yeah, but we'll keep you posted on it. Awesome. Well, thanks you guys. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.